So, hello and welcome to this podcast on India Independent Films. My name is Shashi Mukherjee, and today with me I have Rohit Nair, who is an improviser and a screenwriter. Rohit is the co-founder of Improv Comedy Bangalore, which is an improvisational troupe from Bangalore performing all around the world. And also it's celebrating its 5-year anniversary this year. And Rohit is also a pass out of the 2018 batch of AIB First Draft, which was mentored by Satyanshu Singh, if I'm not wrong, Rohit. And who is also the director of Chintu Ka Birthday, which you might have seen on ZEE5 and in theaters before the COVID pandemic. And Rohit is now writing a lot of scripts for OTTs and films, and we are going to talk about all that very soon. But before that, those of you who are not very accustomed to the idea of improv, I will give you a simple introduction to it. Improv or improvisational theater or improv comedy is basically making up scenes or an entire story, a 3-act story, a play, or jokes on the spot without any script, taking a suggestion from the audience. The suggestion could be a word or a phrase or anything for inspiration, and then you make up an entire scene or a play out of it with your co-improviser right there at that moment. For examples, you can watch something like Whose Line Is It Anyway? And many clips are there on YouTube. You can get an idea of improv comedy. And also Netflix had released an improv special called Middleditch and Schwartz. You can find that. Those are 3 1-hour improv plays, which we can see improv scenes or improv plays. What we can, how do we describe that, Rohit? Can we call them improvised, long form improvised plays, maybe?
First and foremost, Shashi, thanks for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure. And the fact that I'm too fond of you also makes me want to be in this show with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So yes, coming to your question, could you repeat that question once again?
Yeah, actually, I was trying to introduce a lot of things. So the thing is, I was saying that Middleditch and Schwartz, people can go watch it on Netflix to understand what improv is. So can we call it an improvised play because it's a 1-hour long thing, or is it a scene? What do you how do you approach it?
It is. So it's clearly more than a scene. You could see that some of their segments had 2 to 3 scenes combining, sort of working towards the same storyline, towards the same plot. So yeah, they had, I think they had multiple short plays, if you could say that.
Okay.
And it was definitely more than a scene. And Thomas Middleditch is known to perform like that. So he was part of this group called the Improvised Shakespeare, and they used to perform a 2-hour long improvised play with a break. So it had like a proper structure. It had there were consistency of laughter throughout. The scenes were spaced brilliantly. It had a proper 3-act game going on. So they had everything flowing there for them. So Thomas for him, I think this was a cakewalk. This was very easy for him to execute. So small stories, and and then getting on with it. So
yes. So before we talk about your journey or life, I need to give a little trivia to the people who are listening to us. That Rohit has recently gone viral on social media, on Facebook primarily, because of a video he made with his dog Zoe. So last when I checked, it had 2.5 million views on Facebook, and it has been picked up by sites like Indian Express and also television channels. So can you tell us, when did you know that you were going viral? What was the feeling then?
I had no idea. That the clip was going to explode the way it has right now. So Zoe and I have made a couple of videos in the past also, and what I've realized that when people see dogs doing unusual things, they find it funny. And that was the only reason I put it there. Okay, see, my dog is cute. That is all I wanted to tell the world out there. But I think the timing of it all also probably mattered, and the way it was done also probably mattered. And which we had. I mean, I had not thought about executing it in a certain way. So Zoe, when we adopted Zoe a couple of years back, um, she would get really excited seeing me. So my girlfriend, who's now my wife, she basically had adopted Zoe, and whenever I would go to meet Zoe, Zoe would come running out, and she would always make these little sounds like that,
Yeah.
and I would respond to her sounds, all right, and I would make similar sounds. So she probably thinks that I'm one of her. And then we started imitating each other. We started howling like each other. And there were times when both of us would be at the window and barking and howling. So she gets my emotions whenever I'm anxious. Whenever I say, "Hey, Zoe, de kaun aaya?" and she would come running out and start growling all of a sudden. You probably might have seen.
I've seen you made a video about Arnab Aya. Zoe does.
And she comes running, So she definitely she doesn't know who Arnab is, but she senses the urgency in my tone. So that is how in sync we are. I knew, and that rag that I was doing, I knew
Rag
that
Bhaukar.
Bhaukar.
Very well coined.
Definitely respond.
Yeah.
So I knew that she was definitely, going to respond to that. But I had never anticipated that it was going to hit like a 2.5 million mark on my page. There are multiple people who've shared it. I mean, they've sort of downloaded the video and shared it on their pages, and it's gone beyond,
Yeah.
So I was telling my folks also, it'll definitely hit 100,000, 50,000 at least, but it just went on. So yeah, it's good to see, getting a lot of messages from people saying that you made us laugh. I think the world is going through a lot of murky things, and you don't. It probably was also the timing. They wanted that sort of a relief.
True.
And they're just going through like everywhere. There's just bad news out there. So they wanted to see that. They wanted that relief, and it probably came out in the right moment.
True. And people, if you want to watch that video, if you still haven't watched it, please go and search Rag Bhaukar on Facebook, or you can find out Rohit Nair on Facebook and you'll find the video with his dog. He's singing with his dog. So, Rohit, since you are a screenwriter, and I really respect writers, and I've studied a little bit about screenwriting, so I have divided this conversation into 3 acts. 3-act structure mein dal diya, like writers write films. So, the act 1 will be more of exposition about your life, like setting up the story of your life, like your childhood, your engineering days, your work as an engineer. Then we'll find the plot point 1, where we'll find how you made an effort to go into comedy and improv. Then we'll enter act 2, which will be about improv and comedy. And then we'll find plot point 2, which will be the moment when you cracked AIB first draft, and then we'll enter act 3, which will be your career as a screenwriter. So, are you overwhelmed? Are you too overwhelmed?
This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, so हम लोग ढूंढते रहेंगे कि बीच में सब प्लॉट भी कुछ मिल गया, एक्सपोजिशन, प्लांटिंग, फिर जो कैरेक्टर का बहुत ही लो पॉइंट आ गया, हाई पॉइंट आ गया. We'll keep finding it. We are going to write a screenplay of your life today. So, and you're going to teach me in the process. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Let's begin with Act 1. You are from Navi Mumbai, and that's what my research says. So
yes, I was born and raised in Navi Mumbai. Yes.
Tell me about your childhood. Were you always inclined towards the arts?
No, actually, arts was always a form of play. We never looked at it as something that that seemed like a quality or talent, because it was always part of our growth. My childhood, that's why when I say my childhood has been very colorful, in the sense, I love my childhood because I've had the whole range of experience, the whole range of emotional experience, I would say. it has not been very happy, but it has not been very sad. Has been there were times when I was extremely exhilarated. There were times when tragedy hit us like and how. There were times when we had to compromise on a lot of things. There were times when things were handed out to us very easily. So I learned a lot when we were growing up, and because there was that range of experience, I felt my childhood was complete, with everything that's happening around that was happening around us. So growing up in Navi Mumbai, my parents shifted to Navi Mumbai. They moved to Navi Mumbai long back in 1977, and तभी तो वहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं था. There was just that Thane Creek and mangroves and nothing else. And we were a family of 5. I'm the youngest, and we were raised in a 1 RK. The 5 of us, and there was never there was the idea of privacy never existed for us. And how do you tackle all of that? And at the same time, all of us were together, enjoying things together, sharing a lot of things together, happiness, sadness, everything. It was a great shared experience. And we, the living in that community experience was ingrained right from the time we were in that house. We were born to that. I was born to that family in that house. Living together, the 5 of us, sleeping in a row, by putting the mattress on the floor because we didn't have space for a bed, stuff like that. So it was a wonderful experience, and everyone out there had similar experiences. So we had that, shared empathy going on. Be it dance, be it paint, be it sports, we were all over. We were everywhere. Okay. And that, I think, probably, always made me think, always made me imagine a lot of things, because I had that colorful childhood. I never thought that, okay, maybe it'll be used in the arts or whatever. But just those experiences, and it just remained so photographic. I can still think of the little details that made me laugh when I was a kid. So I think, it's that rich experience in childhood that really helped me, bringing all of those experiences back and putting them on paper.
What were some early influences, maybe in terms of films or comedy, like? During those days?
So my father used to get a lot of these DVDs, not DVDs. We had VCDs. Cassettes. VCDs. So one of my relatives they had given us the VCR, and my dad would rent out these VCDs, and they basically play them. And he would only get Malayalam movies, and Malayalam movies. Yeah, and there were some great Malayalam movies out there. Malayalam movies are hilarious, all right? I mean, I feel
even now they are the best from India.
Yeah, and because they're so authentic, spontaneous. So, unke level ka humor, you don't find that often, and it's very simple, it's plain. So I used to subscribe to that. So even a lot of my friends, my family. So I'm very close to my sisters. So they would watch, and we would always discuss stuff. So Malayalam movies initially were like, a great source of entertainment for us. So there are movies like Mani Chitratayu. Mani Chitratayu is basically the original of all your Bhool Bhulaiyas and your Chandramukhi. So it's a classic. I love it. I've watched the movie so many times. Then a lot of movies like Akkare Akkare. It's basically, a Malayalam movie featuring Srinivasan and Mohanlal. Both of them are, from the forces, and they're trying to find out, the perpetrator of a crime. So it's hilarious. So these bits were really good. I was a huge fan of Amir Khan growing up, because I thought he was such a refreshing actor, back then, so unique, I felt, back then. And I used to watch all of his movies. Jo Jeeta is still, right up there.
Okay.
Amol Palekar used to be, all his,
Golmaal.
Golmaal, amazing. What subtle comedy. So I was always drawn to subtle comedy. A lot of Maharashtrian movies, a lot of Marathi movies, because I was again raised in a Maharashtrian setup. My locality was very Maharashtrian. My neighbors are Maharashtrian, so we would all watch Marathi movies. I loved watching Lakshmikant Berde. There was this movie called, I think, Tatya Vitsu. We used to watch that so many times. So so these movies or stories were always part of our growing up, and sort of shaped my my likeliness towards humor and stuff. Yes.
So when you said that you liked subtle humor more, did you not get attracted to physical comedy like Chaplin or someone like Mr. Bean, something like that?
Yes. We used to buy the VCDs. We would always buy these and rent it out and watch it. Back then, all of it wasn't so easily available as well. But yes, Chaplin, Buster Keaton, always, Mr. Bean for that matter. Great physical comedy.
Johnny Lever also.
Oh my God, absolutely. Johnny Lever he's a class apart. He's, so proud of him being there, right up there with everybody else. Johnny Lever, Keshto Mukherjee for that matter, his trademark, that laugh. My sister used to imitate it so many times in all of our family reunions. So yes, definitely, these character actors were always right up there. Johnny Lever's role in Bazigar, where
the chai wala scene, chai mein namak dal ke lata hai.
Crazy.
Yeah, so good.
The way he's just bewildered every single time. Aapko kahin dekha hai. So funny.
Yeah.
He used to do it all on his own. One man army. So Bazigar is throughout. It's such a suspenseful movie, but the only way they could have brought in humor was bringing Johnny Lever. One man army to fill in their comedic needs.
Yes. But did you also start by doing impressions? Because a lot of people who get into comedy later on, they start by doing impressions of their favorite actors and all. Were you that entertainer kid in your family?
I definitely was the Joker. I was always the Joker. I was good with imitation, but imitating my friends or family, that is where it starts, right? And since we were sort of a close-knit family, meeting every single time, I found merit in only doing that. Just noticing the little things and then making everybody else think about what they are actually missing when they are observing a person. So I was always, because that is again the kind of humor we used to subscribe to. Like Johnny Lever was great with imitations. So yes, why not? Let's try and imitate some of our own. So yes, I always was the Joker. More so because I was reckless. I would just do anything and everything that I would want to do. So even when it came to my humor, I would not stop myself from trying something, from doing something, from imitating people without thinking, okay, what if they get offended?
Yeah.
Never. So I just went ahead with it. So yes. So I think that also sort of set it up for me.
But then you went for engineering. So were you passionate about it? Because some people are passionate too, like they genuinely go there. There are very few people who really want to study engineering and go for that. Were you one of those, or were you like me?
So I'll tell you how I got an engineering seat. Okay, for me, career was something I never thought of. All right, I never decided what I wanted to do. 12th में मुझे 75% मिले, like dot 75%.
Wow.
So and I knew I'm going to get 75%. 75% मिले. I spoke to my parents. They were like, "Yeah, beta, you have to do science." And there was no talk of aptitude. What do you like to do? Where do your interests lie? Nothing. And I didn't want to delve into all of that, you know. So we just moved into saying, okay, beta, science karo. Science kar liya. Science में भी थोड़े decent ही marks आए, 74-75% again. So chalo beta, good. You're better than the 75% out there. So let's do engineering. And अभी engineering में कैसे है कि you know there are people who get good marks and there are people who get mediocre marks. So I was there, you know, that mediocre wala, just trying to make the cut. I was standing in a queue with my father to get an engineering seat in a college. And these basically were vacant seats, like people who had scored great marks. They were basically they had basically left those seats and it was left for us to fetch. तो मैं मेरे डैड के साथ वहां पे रुका था. मेरे डैड ने बोला इसको एक केमिकल इंजीनियरिंग दे दो, और हम लोग ने कभी डिस्कस भी नहीं किया था कि केमिकल इंजीनियरिंग करना है, सिविल इंजीनियरिंग करना है, क्या करना है. और मैं खड़ा हूँ वहां पे चुपचाप. तो यू नो आई डिड नॉट केयर, माय डैड डिड नॉट केयर, बट द लेडी एट द एडमिशन डेस्क शी केयर्ड. यू नो शी वाज लाइक, अरे मार्क्स ठीक है इसके, आप कंप्यूटर ले लो. 5 सेकंड में डैड ने ही बोल दिया, हाँ ठीक है फिर कंप्यूटर दे दो. So it was like that. That is how it was decided. I had nothing to do with my decision or whatever. I was not too passionate, but I was also, you know, I didn't think of quitting it midway because education for, you know, South Indian middle class families is a big deal. You know, we like I've seen how my parents struggled to educate us. So I didn't want to, you know, give that away, leave it midway. Like I know if I failed in a subject, it hurt my dad because he was really paying from his pocket. You know, we were absolutely broke. So I had to finish it. I completed and same course of life, you know, it just took me from there.
But during this period, like, did you have this idea that what you want to pursue? Like, I'm trying to figure out in your screenplay, did the character have the intention right then at that time?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. I really wanted to get into doing movies and writing movies, and the first short movie that blew me away, that really made me want to write and get into movies. And this was right at the time when I was applying for engineering. I was torn between doing BMM and engineering. And what made me really want to pursue filmmaking was Anand Gandhi's short film called Right Here, Right Now.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
What a film it is.
It blew me away. And I was like, ye aise create, aise magic you can create on the screen. And if something can just, you know, make me feel the way I'm feeling right now, then I want to do this, you know. But still, I didn't have enough awareness, not enough backing then for me to pursue it. But I kept following his journey. I kept following Anand Gandhi's work. Even his cast, you know, where are they now? What are they doing? And from there on, I started getting into, you know, watching more movies, understanding what constitutes to writing. I was okay with writing. I was not the best out there, but I was okay with writing. I knew how to bring in sensibilities, but you know, I mean, it was just a matter of time when I would finally find, you know, where my interests lie. But till then, it wasn't very streamlined for me.
Okay. So you were inspired by Anand Gandhi during when you were trying to apply for engineering. So tell me, when you were studying engineering, because in engineering colleges we have certain societies, film societies and everything, drama.
Yeah.
What were you inclined towards those clubs?
I I wasn't initially. I wasn't because it was just taking, like, engineering was taking too much of my time. Studying and getting a hang of the syllabus and all of those things, it was just too much for me. Later on, yes. You start sort of exploring. Okay, ki kya hai cinema? What world cinema is exactly? Then you basically start realizing that, okay, there is so much more than what's actually been shown to you. I don't know, somewhere, I think, no, that happened way later. Lars von Trier, he came into my life with with Nymphomaniac and other exhibitionist movies and stuff like that. So you were easily drawn to such kinds, one movie, if I could think of, there was a time when a lot of Korean movies were making people's head turn. All those, My Sassy Girl and things like that. People had just realized that Koreans are also making good romantic movies and stuff.
And look where they are now. Won the best picture.
My God, yeah. Tabhi wo sare even a lot of Asian movies, rather, like Ring and all of those things that just come in. Fir baad mein uske remakes bane, Shutter and stuff. So I think we were looking for those kinds. We were looking for those kinds of movies. Then I remember for a fact that I for some reason I remember all horror movies. I remember watching movies like Paranormal Activity, because I think हम लोग सारे वहाँ पे अटके थे, उसी जगह पे, वहाँ के वही सारे जोन के मूवीज देख रहे थे. Paranormal Activity, again, a movie made using all these peripheral and web cameras. So to say, in our college, I don't think we had like a movie club or something like that. I would have loved if that were the case, because a lot of my peers, from these colleges, from your NITs and IITs and all of those places, they have such fabulous rich culture. And I'm like, mere time pe kyun nahi tha ye sab? I started watching all of this when I started interacting with them, जब मैं काम करने लगा, तब I was like, wow, you guys have so much. मतलब एक पूरे टीवी के हार्ड डिस्क के साथ आते थे उन लोग ऑफिस में, ये लो देखो.
Yeah, IIT Bombay has this club called Silver Screen, and they made around a 2-hour movie called Deja Vu in 2006. Like, the kids of IIT Bombay made it, and I guess some director had loved it so much. Sudhir Mishra, I guess, I'm not really sure. I need to check it. But people who are listening to us should recheck it. Sudhir Mishra had said that this is so good, we can like cut it down in certain ways and send it to Cannes, maybe. Like something like that.
Oh, wow.
It's called Deja Vu. You can find it on YouTube. I really loved it. It's about a student studying in IIT and his dreams of doing theatre. Quitting studies, again the same story, but done in a really nice way. And that too in 2006, when like I was not aware of world cinema. I got to know it much later, but still, yeah. So,
You
were saying something? No.
I totally agree with that. That's what I was saying. I wish we had something so similar. And I think मेरे जैसे बहुत कम थे वहाँ पे यार, जहाँ पे जिनको कुछ करना है या बनाना है. Like, I tried making short films with my closest friends, लेकिन कभी execute नहीं हुआ. So we tried all of that, but could never really do justice to the story or give it that much time or whatever.
Then you got into jobs, doing engineering jobs, and you have mentioned in one of your stories under Tall Tales that once you were working in a room full of strawberries and you were called a mechanic while repairing a computer, but you were a computer engineer. Tell me about those days of frustration and tell me.
I was living in New Bombay. We had just moved. We had moved to the end of New Bombay, or actually you can say technically it's beyond New Bombay. We were living in Panvel, and I was going to work in Andheri, man. So मैं 2 दिन के 4 घंटे में ट्रैवल करता था सिर्फ. And I had the office laptop, तो मैं खोल के I would just start writing. That was my breakaway from the usual rigmarole. That was me finding क्या कहते हैं, मतलब वो पैटर्न ब्रेक करने की कोशिश करता था मैं. एंड आई वुड लव राइटिंग इट. आई वुड, एंड वो ह्यूमर बहुत नेचुरली आ रहा था मुझे तभी. तो आई वुड जस्ट वो 4 घंटे में मैं लिख के अपने ब्लॉग में पब्लिश करता था. बट those were the times when we really had to really had to go for it. Situations were like that. My father had just had a bypass surgery then, और थोड़े finances के लग गए थे because he didn't have a medical insurance and stuff like that, and we really had to up our game. I couldn't think of moving into another career then. I didn't have the luxury then. And that's why wherever, and recession had hit us really bad in 2008. Recession was horrible. We were getting into companies, and companies were actually telling us to pay them 60,000. You pay us, आप हमें 60,000 दीजिए, and we'll give you 5,000 every month. So you are also a winner. We are also a winner. we get your service. You get our experience. And I'm like, what sort of scams are these? Yes. we used to we used to see all of these things, बहुत regular basis पे. So कहाँ पे कुछ भी मिल गया ना, we would just go. So we were working in a startup, all right, my friend and I, we were working in a startup, और ये startup में भी मतलब उनके जो ऐसे जो the guys who were leading the company, they had some friends. All right, they had some friends, and these friends, you know how people are, right? Abhi jaise, for example, I have a friend who works for Vodafone. He's at some other level, लेकिन मेरे घर पे रेंज नहीं आता तो मैं उसको फोन करके बोलता हूँ, अरे मेरा फोन चल रहा नहीं.
ये इंडियन मेंटालिटी.
And he tells me he is not going to do anything. So similarly, I'm assuming my bosses had some friends and they had some issues with their printer, and they would say, hey, because you're good in IT, why don't you do this? And they're like, मैं तो नहीं कर सकता, लेकिन मेरा एक लड़का है वो कर देगा. मेरा engineering करके, I'm doing all these Java and C++ courses and stuff like that, trying to change the world, creating modules, Perl modules and all those things, writing 2,000 lines of code घर पे बैठ के, so that I become a good programmer and stuff like that. और फिर मुझे my boss comes and tells me, Rohit, you have to go to the client side. And I'm like, wow, this is great. Like, I have to go to the client, finally getting to meet the client. Or I went to this guy who stayed in Andheri. उससे जाके बात किया, and I was in my head, I was thinking there is a big problem. There has to be some something to do with the program. I think I have to create a program in order to rectify this issue. Or because he was in my head, the problem was very complex, but this guy was telling me, अरे ये actually इसका layout बराबर नहीं, ये printer मेरा चल नहीं रहा है सही से, कि वो layout बराबर जा नहीं रहा है. वो he wanted to print labels, man, because he has a startup that sells juices. All right, he cool. had a startup that is selling juices, so he has all those strawberry cartons everywhere. और मैं उधर गया पूरे मेरे formals में, looking like a proper professional, and he's telling me मेरे प्रिंटर में लेबल्स बराबर नहीं आ रहे, क्या आप मेरे प्रिंटर का लेआउट ठीक कर सकते हो? And I was like, ये कहाँ मैं आ गया यार, ये क्या करना पड़ रहा है? And I'm trying to oversell him. मैं उसको बोल रहा है, ये ना मैं आपको एक क्या करके देता हूँ, मैं एक प्रोग्राम लिख के देता हूँ इसके लिए. मैं आपको एक प्रोग्राम लिख के देता हूँ, आपको अच्छे से फिर ऑटोमेट हो जाएगा, and all this, trying to hard sell him on technology, saying that I have better solutions to give you. बट कुछ काम नहीं आया. मैंने एकदम से बस वो प्रिंटर एक दो प्रिंट निकाल के दिए उसको, 5 मिनट का काम था, 5 मिनट का, प्रिंट निकाल के दे दिया और मैं चला गया. उसके पहले लेकिन they had a small kid, okay? So the kid basically he was always hovering around me, and when I was sort of looking at the printer from all corners and this guy is hovering around me, मेरे को आके पूछता अंकल आप कौन हो. मैं कुछ बोला नहीं उसको, ऐसे I didn't say anything. I said नादान बच्चा है क्या मालूम इसको. तो फिर बाद में मॉम कम्स इन एंड सेज बेटा मैकेनिक है काम करने दो.
देखो ये हालत है इंजीनियर्स के यार, मतलब
yeah, and I'm like yeah you are absolutely right. But doesn't end there. The guy is like तो अंकल खाना खा के जाएंगे क्या.
but yeah
बच्चे को खींच के लेके गई माँ. Yeah, but that is how you were perceived. Yeah, tech मतलब mech.
True. But this was also the time when you were writing a book, Caliber's Cabaret. Am I right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
That happened. Yeah, that happened. It happened later, but not very like a year after that experience. So I realized that I was banking a lot on my my childhood experience. I realized that it's too rich for me to give it away without really writing or looking back at the events that shaped me or made me what I am today. So I had started doing my blog work and everything, and Shashi Tharoor used to share my stuff.
Wow.
Share stuff from my blog, and he would really find it funny.
Is it still active now, the blog?
I don't think it is. I think वो अभी तो बंद कर दिया मैंने उसे भी, because a lot of things I don't relate to.
Oh, okay.
But some of
Shashi Tharoor would relate to that now. Or is he going to take it back? Even I don't relate to this now. Cool.
Yeah. No, but some of the things that I'd written, I have clearly deviated from that line of thinking. So not too proud, but there's some of the stories were really good. So they were always funny and stuff like that. So I realized that I was still banking, even for my humor. I was banking, towards my childhood stories, and I thought, okay, fine, let's work on this. So I was trying to create a story with Caliber Cabaret being a dance bar which was actually very close to where I was staying, and it used to it basically became a landmark. For all the buildings around.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody would, if I had to go to, say, my building, the auto wala wouldn't ever get it. So if I had to tell him, chalo bar ke paas chalo Caliber Cabaret chalo, so, they would take. And the story was basically about a boy and a girl who grew up in that setup, in that society, and now they basically have grown up from that, but they come back to that place to get some closure on an unresolved issue, which was again a story very close to my heart. But I obviously I didn't have enough time or courage maybe to pursue it. But I don't know, maybe someday, sometime.
Now you are a writer, you can of course get back to it.
I guess, yeah.
Maybe just after this podcast, you can open up the files and start doing it again.
Yeah, and Shashi, it's so weird. You're the second person who's asking me about it now. Because iske pehle, the friend that I was working with this on, she mailed me after 6 years asking me what's happening with this. And she sent me the draft that I had sent it to her. So it's hitting me back. I think it's a sign. Maybe I'll pick that up again.
Surely. We'll look forward to reading that when you complete it. And
yeah, man, sure.
Also, you did some storytelling with Tall Tales. Could you tell us about that venture?
Yeah. Like I said, I would travel 4 hours, and that is when I would sort of open up my laptop and start writing. And I would like publish 10 posts in a month, like a proper full-fledged 2,000 worded story in a month, and I was getting stories very quickly. Again, experience. Now put it down. There's so much to write. So I like, okay, there's a lot to write. There's a lot that people would relate to. So एक मैंने story ऐसी डाल दिया, लोगों बहुत मजा आया. And I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. Let me keep doing this. So I was doing this. People were noticing my blog. Shashi Tharoor was retweeting stuff.
Wow.
So it was all working.
What kind of words were you putting that he got attracted to?
I had, yeah. That's a good question actually, because I had once written about the perils of being a Malayali,
Oh.
And then he was like, "Oh, this is accurate. we should.
Yes.
Everybody should read."
Yeah.
So one day, my sister was reading the newspaper and she saw an advertisement about this man called Michael Burns, who had come down from the US and was starting a storytelling organization and was looking for real life stories. And she said, why don't you, write a story? Why don't you send it to her? And I had just broken up with a girl then, वो टाइम पे, और मैंने एक बहुत ही खतरनाक स्टोरी लिखा था about my experience, about my first date with her, and I put it on Quora, and it fetched like 20,000 views in like 2 hours or something. It was just going on everywhere. And I said, okay, fine, I'll send the story to him. I sent it to him. Michael Burns called me immediately and he was like, this is a very good story. Why don't you come and meet me? And then I met him, and I had no idea that I had to actually go out there and narrate the story, because this whole funda was so unique. I mean, कहाँ होता है यार यहाँ पे स्टोरी टेलिंग, तो मैंने कभी सुना नहीं था back then. In 2013 I had no idea. Even though there were organizations, but I had no idea that there was
not that like organized like it is now. Yeah.
And US mein, you had this organization. You still have it, I guess. It's called The Moth. The Moth basically does a lot of story slams and stuff like that. So Michael Burns was coming from that school of thought that he would do something like this over here. So I sent him the story. He liked it. He called me, and then he just took an audition. मेरे को सिर्फ बोला कि तू read कर, और मैंने read किया मेरा story. He liked it, and then he said, then now you have to come and narrate it. And this was the first time ever that I was actually interacting with an audience. An audience like 120 people were there, and I was with my script, wanting to narrate my story to them. I was supposed to go first, and I was so nervous. Michael Burns put me last, and then
you had to finish the show. That was also a job. Yeah,
that's again a pressure, because
that's again a pressure.
And and I went last. I went last. First time ever. Like, I've never participated in elocution competition, essay writing, storytelling in school. Yeah. Never. First time at the age of 27. Out there wanting to narrate a story to the world. और मैं पूरा, मेरा मुंह ऐसा ना, मतलब पूरा चिपक गया है, ड्राई हो गया है. You can actually hear me going, on the mic. It is so clear. और मैं एकदम, हाथ मेरे कांप रहे, ऐसे पेपर पलट रहा हूँ मैं. But when I got into it, I just felt the need to entertain people, on my expense, on the, I realized that how much I'm using my tragedy to make them laugh, and it just came so naturally to me. I had never thought that it would really make me feel so good about entertaining people, standing there, telling them a story. It was a different feeling. I had never ever felt that in my life.
So liberating, right?
It was crazy. It was like I was meant to do this. So I stood there and I narrated the story, and everything else is history, because I had never seen myself like that. I had never seen myself being funny in front of an audience. I had never entertained that many people in a room together. I had never heard so many people laughing together at my joke when I wanted them to laugh. And it was all coming very naturally to me. So that was the start, and that is when I realized, okay, I have to, I have to do this. This is where I belong. And I started writing more stories, and it got just, if not that much, तो उससे थोड़ा ज़्यादा recognition. बहुत, like, people were loving the stories. People were loving it. They were basically. I got a message from Saurabh Pant, the stand-up comedian.
Yeah, EIC,
He told
East
me,
India Comedy at that time.
Yeah. One second. हाँ, so he basically was telling me कि तुझे मेरे open mic में आना पड़ेगा stand up करने के लिए. And so I had support from all these places, and I went on doing stories. I did 20 shows for them in like 10 months for
Wow.
Tall Tales. I wrote 5 stories for them in 6 months. I wrote 5 stories, which वो तभी किसी ने ज़्यादा किया नहीं था. तो so stuff like that. So basically that is where my journey started as a writer performer.
That's how you describe yourself even now.
Always. I think वो ही है वो मेरा. That is what I will always want to be known as, a writer performer, and that is where I met a lot of improvisers. That is where I met Kanis Surka. That is where I met Mukul Chadda. A fabulous. He's a fabulous storyteller. He's a fabulous writer. He's a fabulous performer. He speaks so well. Then Yogesh Upadhyay. He's also
fabulous
and a great improviser. So
True.
Smart. I met Nasir, my soulmate. So that is where I met all of them. That is where that is when I realized that they are actually doing something called improvisational theater. I had no idea that I was such a huge fan of Whose Line Is It Anyway, and मुझे मालूम नहीं था कि वो improv होता है. And that is when I came to know about improv, and that's where I sort of moved into improv from there.
Yes. So we had a lovely, wonderful act 1 of your life. Till now, we had Rohit Nair, who started from Navi Mumbai. He wanted to be in the arts. He wanted to do comedy. He wanted to tell stories. He was stuck in engineering. There was this desire. Then he started writing a book that didn't turn out for that time. Then again, he got into storytelling. And finally, the plot point 1 arrived when he met all these people and got to know about improv. Now we move into Act 2, where he started pursuing it. So tell me the journey of co-founding Improv Comedy Bangalore.
So we performed with. I mean, I was then just a rookie. I started off by taking a workshop with Adam Dow. And we had a group of comedians wanting to do shows together. Nasir was also there. He was always like our senior and stuff like that.
Could you give a little intro of Adam Dow for people who are listening to us?
So Adam Dow is he's basically the guy who brought improv to Mumbai. I would say that there were a bunch of groups who or maybe one group that had started doing improv. But Adam is the guy who sort of he basically spread it out there. He put it out there for everybody to consume. So he's done a lot of workshops. He started I think in 2010 or 11. That's when Mukul, Kanis, Sean Williams, they were all part of the first batch, and they're fabulous actors, all of them. So they had taken the workshop from him. And since then, Adam has been doing a lot of workshops in Mumbai. So he's, all of us are from his school of improv, and he's, you could say, I always refer to him as the father of improv in India, rather, because wahan se hi sab start hua hai. So that is more about Adam Dow. He's from Seattle. I think Unscripted Productions is his, he's part of that theater. He's part of that theater group. Ryan Stiles is part of, I think he owns it, he runs it, the Unscripted theater. I think it's his. So so Adam Dow has taken a lot of people from India to various improv festivals around the world. So he's done quite a bit for the improv community here. Yeah. So that's more about him. Then I started doing improv with people like Nasir, Avinash Verma, Ankit Challa, all fabulous actors. They were so good. Then Naveen Kaushik, all of them. And then I was also at that time I was getting married. I was in this this zone because abhi to engineering bhi mera giving me that respect. Nobody's calling me a mechanic anymore. Getting paid enough. So you know how middle class people operate. Like, you finish engineering, you find a job, you find a better job, then you update your Bharat Matrimony profile.
आप chronology समझिए.
ये एक chronology है. तो I was also doing the same thing, updating Bharat Matrimony, Shaadi.com, Jeevan Sathi, all of those things at the same time. तो फिर शादी का तभी all those things were happening. I was loving doing improv in Bombay. But at the same time, I was getting disillusioned by the whole idea of Bombay, the whole desperation. I was getting disillusioned by it because मैं travel करता था बहुत 2 hours, 4 hours every day, and I was seeing the kind of desperation people had. They're forcing each other inside, they're pushing, shoving, and that stress just out there for people to see, witness, making a fool of themselves. But the tipping point for me was when I actually saw a man fall to death in front of me. Like 5 seconds pehle wo mere baaju mein baitha tha, and then he gets up to get down at the station. He was drunk, and he realized that the train is moving fast. He tried to get down. He tried to hold on to the bar, the post. Couldn't hold on to it for longer. He fell down and he died. All right, and that for me was it. It was like I told myself, I am not doing this anymore. I mean, I don't relate to this desperation. And I said, I thought, okay, let me switch cities, because it was taking a lot of toll on me as well. I want to switch cities. I want to start afresh, and I want to stay away from the stress. And that's when I thought, okay, let's go to Bangalore, and that too because even Nasir was there, so I'll get my improv as well. I'll get a fresh start, and I thought this is probably a great chance to do it. Then I moved to Bangalore. वहाँ पे फिर मेरी शादी भी हुई, नासिर भी मिला, improv भी किया, but the Nasir was also struggling to form a group then, and he said he wants to form one, and I was ready to do it. Then along with Abhishek, we formed Improv Comedy Bangalore.
Abhishek Desai, you mean?
Abhishek Desai. We formed Improv Comedy Bangalore, and there were a lot of people in the group. They were going in, coming out, and then we had to maintain the group dynamics also. We were doing so many shows randomly all over Bangalore. We were doing like you could say we were doing like 60 shows a year, man. It was crazy. There was just too many people. They were just calling us, and we would go. Because we just wanted to perform. I wanted to make a name for. Wanted to create an improv niche. Then in Bangalore, at least, because there was just one group who was doing improv then, The Improv by Saad Khan, Danish Seth. So they were the only ones who were doing improv then.
Okay.
In Bangalore. And then later on, Madhu joined us. And then Abhishek, Madhu Shukla, Nasir, and I, we formed the core of ICB, and we ran it for quite some time. Yeah, we started working towards making sketches, doing a lot of good shows, high production shows, and we we then also applied for the Chicago Improv Festival, where we eventually got selected. फिर वहाँ पे गए, शिकागो में गए, परफॉर्म किया वहाँ पे. They liked our performance. They called us to perform at Second City. Second City में perform किया. And
a little intro of Second City also for people.
Yeah. So Second City is like the mecca of improv. All the big names, almost all the big names in comedy have done a course from Second City, or have been performers at Second City, or have written for Second City sketches. So like your Steve Carell, Tina Fey, I think Amy Poehler, who went on to form UCB. They're all part of Second City. Then I think Del Close was also I'm not sure if Del Close was ever part of Second City. He had his own IO theater.
Improv Olympics.
Yeah, the Improv Olympics. So Chicago is the mecca of improv, where you have IO and you have the Second City, and these, all the respected performers, all the greatest comedians, they all come from there. So we went to Chicago, and we went to Second City first to ऐसा जाके माथा टेकने. और उस दिन हमारा एक लोकल थिएटर में परफॉर्मेंस था, and some people had come to watch who also sort of were part of the programming team at Second City. So they said, "Hey, you guys are good. I need to come." And you're like, what the hell? Why not? तो फिर उस दिन जाके the next day actually we went and performed at Second City. So big moment for us. That was 30th March 2017. I cannot forget the date. Yeah, 30th March 2017 is when we performed for Second City.
But as a cultural barrier nahi hota hai, like when you perform for them, because we have so many jokes which are relatable only for Indians. How do you make it relatable to those people?
So so you're saying that actually helps, being from a different culture, when you're trying to not fit in, but give a glimpse of what your culture is about, and how there is a clear difference between both the cultures. You can play that for humor. Like I remember most of our scenes were about that, how there was a clear culture mismanagement. There was a clear cultural discord between a boy who was born in the US, whereas his mother, who is Indian, has seen the India that she was born in, and she basically subscribes to that kind of living. Whereas, say, suppose if I am the son, I am now I have a different idea of my world. My culture is different. So that clear discord was playing for comedy. So that actually helped us. Being from a different culture helped us. For example, whenever I went on stage, I would always come up with a line of introduction, and it would just be one quirky line. So and Bangalore is definitely known for tech, right? Like everybody, and at that point of time, a lot of people were talking about how work is going to Bangalore in India, how all the work is going to Bangalore and not in Buffalo, so they were basically talking about all these things. So I would go on stage and I would say, "Hey guys, we are Improv Comedy Bangalore, and we are not here to fix your computers."
Wonderful. Acha, what's it?
So yeah. I would always start with that, and we would play whatever we are really true with. If one of us, so Abhishek had this thing of always getting into an accent. Okay. For some reason, Abhishek would always throw in an American accent while speaking. So throughout in Chicago, Abhishek was speaking in an American accent, and I would always call that out. Like, "Hey, you just you just landed in Chicago. What's with your tone, and what's with your accent all of a sudden?" And that became the game of the scene, So the more time he was spending in the US, he was becoming more and more American. So that was one of our scenes. So it was like that, so we played culture to our advantage totally, and people loved it. We met David Schwimmer there, at the festival, and I was so happy with our performance. Like, people were coming and, wow, you guys were amazing. And they were loving it. मैं जाके सीधा डेविड शिमर को पूछा, did you watch our performance? The first thing I go and ask him, did you watch our performance? And he's like, sorry, what? Who are you? And like, oh, sorry, let me introduce myself to you. I thought you would know me by now.
Wow. Nice. Making India proud.
Yeah, full on. Yeah, so that was basically our stint at Chicago. We met a lot of great people, great artists, and we've been in touch with them ever since. Still taking, notes on improv, learning from them. So it was a fabulous experience that. Yeah. Then we came back and improv in Bangalore. At least, we were creating a community. It was becoming richer. A lot of people had joined us. We had more credibility to us now. We were serious performers because we were doing everything to make improv visible, make it different from stand-up. That was always a problem for us because we were always known as stand-up comedians.
Stand-up comedians doing jokes without scripts. That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody would come and, hey, Rohit, तेरा stand-up कभी है next time? मैं stand-up नहीं करता हूँ यार. तू करता है ना कुछ तो stage पे करता है ना कुछ तो ड्रामा करता है. हाँ तो वो stand-up थोड़ी है. So we had to make people understand कि भाई stand-up improv अलग है. तो वो creating that identity for improv was a huge challenge. And to a great extent, I think we did a very good job at that. I feel as a group of 4 core members, I think we did a fab job there. Yeah. So that is what was happening with improv. Improv बहुत अच्छा हो रहा था तभी.
Let's understand more about improv. Because it's important to create its identity separate from stand-up or even scripted sketch comedy or sitcoms. So tell me, what I've understood is that you need to find the truth of the situation. When you said that he spoke in an accent which was not really the accent, and also you took advantage of the cultural barriers that you had. So tell me, what exactly is improv and the types of improv? Tell me.
So improv, it banks on spontaneity. For improv to really work, you need people to really sit and listen to each other and empathize with each other, and just make each other look good. Like we say, just say yes to an idea and build on top of it, and then you see where it goes on from there on. So for improv, you need these principles to set in. It's just not about cracking a joke. It's just not about having a setup and a punchline ready. It's about forming those dynamics on stage. It's about creating real emotions on stage. Sometimes because you're so overwhelmed with the reality on the stage, because people are actually playing it out from the emotions they felt in the past, and they're using all of those experiences on the stage. To be a good improviser, you also need to be a very good actor, and a good actor will always take from personal experience. So you need to be a good actor. You need to be convincing as an actor. You need to convince the audience that they're actually playing from emotions. You need to take the audience with you in a journey. Make them feel what you're feeling. Make them laugh when you want to laugh. And see to that everybody else on stage looks good. So it's challenging, but it is such a beautiful process. It is such a beautiful process in the sense so much about yourself, and everything is not about you. You realize how you can give the other person also that much credibility and space to function in. So so these elements are so much more than just a few people going on stage and trying to create humor. Everything comes after that. I mean, it's humor becomes a byproduct. But these building blocks, this core principle is the most therapeutic theater can ever be. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is what improv gives you, and that is what you do when you're on stage with a bunch of fellow improvisers who are also probably good actors. So yeah, more or less that's
And has it like changed you as a person over the years? Have you become a better listener in real life?
Massively. It's helped me grow so much as a human being. Like there is this whole idea of listening. I mean, it is so underrated. When if people really just sit back and listen to each other, we will probably live in a much better world today.
Yeah.
If
So true.
yeah, it just takes people to sit back and listen. I have made deeper connections. I have great friends, and thanks to improv, most of most of the people from my community, or I could say my core team that with whom we formed ICB, they are such fabulous. They're great friends. I can bank on them for anything and everything. I'm a much better listener. I'm more empathetic as a person now, and at the same time, I know what sets me apart from the rest also. So it gives you that feeling of individuality also. So improv, definitely, as a person, I've changed so much owing to that. And I'll tell you with context to a tragedy that was happening at the same time. And when improv really helped me to sail through that patch.
Okay.
Like I said, when I was in Bangalore, I was married then, and my my personal life was really hit. It was going to the drains. I was, just not a happy person at home. It was just not working for both of us, and that whole period was really painful. And improv was, in a way, helping me to internalize these emotions, to understand them well, to understand myself better, and it, in the form of my co-improvisers, it gave me a lot of friends and people who could empathize and understand my my problem at that point of time. And that is what you want. You, at that point of time, you want somebody to just sit and listen to you.
Yes.
So I had like the best listeners I could I could think of having. And eventually, as the marriage was coming to an end, my friendship and everything that improv was doing for me, or what it what it meant to me was still intact. Nothing of that ever got changed or hindered or anything of that sort. And that helped me sail through that point of grief as well, because it eventually ended. Marriage ended. But I had made some great connections who helped me through this whole process of grief. I was not escaping any feeling or emotion, internalizing everything, making it a part of my my reality, and yeah, and basically, I was seeing for what it is, not looking it as a failure, because in improv you always said that failures are gifts, and how do
To
you
use it to your advantage.
how do you use it to your advantage? So yeah, so that was the point where I was I was really transitioning. I was still an IT guy doing improv, and had a horrible personal life. So we were basically, that is the point where it comes to that place, that okay, this is it. You can't take it from here on. You have to move. You have to do something that makes you happy, or at least makes you think that you've done something significant in life when you go to sleep. तो वो फीलिंग आ रहा ही नहीं था बहुत टाइम से. So and finally marriage ended, and then while I was packing my bags and moving out of the house, I saw AIB first draft ka applications that started. So when I was packing, when my mom had come down, she was helping me to pack all my stuff. When I was packing everything, when I was in between moving my stuff from my house to my friend's house, I was again sitting with my laptop and working on the story. तो जैसे जैसे मैं निकल रहा हूँ, वैसे वैसे मैं स्टोरी के एक एक वर्ड्स लिख रहा हूँ. तो I wrote a story. I finished it before the deadline, and I sent it to AIB, and I took my bags and moved out of the house. So in a matter of 10 days, I no more had a house of my own. I was no more. Technically, I was married, but I was not with a partner anymore. I moved. I moved to a total bachelor pad. My social status had changed, and I put down my papers at work just then, because when I applied for AIB first draft, I felt that rush, and I was like, "This is what I'm going to chase. This is the feeling that I want to chase." And if I can feel this now, I think I can feel this for a longer time, and I don't want to rob myself from that experience. So I said, "This is it. I can't do this anymore." So I went and I put down my papers also. So everything for me flipped in a matter of 10 days. AIB ka results were also not out till then.
It was a risk then. It was quite a risk.
Total risk. Yeah. And I was like, अभी ये क्या कहते हैं, fight or flight. अभी that is it. अभी घुसना है तो पूरा घुसो, नहीं तो करो ही मत. Then I'll regret this for the rest of my life. तो फिर अप्लाई किया, रेजिग्नेशन डाला, घर छोड़ दिया, दोस्त के घर पे गया, उसके घर पूरा बैचलर पैड, like my whole social status had flipped, and how people, that divorcee tag is actually a real deal. People look at you with contempt, वो होता है, actually होता है, and then sort of trying to escape from that also. And eventually, I think 31st December, I got a call from AIB saying that you are in the top 40.
Who called you? Was it one of the four?
No, not
okay.
Not one of them, but his name is Rigved, who was doing the coordination and everything. So yeah. Cool.
So like one of my friends got a call from one of the four. I thought they were only calling everyone. It's cool. Yeah.
No, so I'll tell you when that happened.
Cool.
So 40 का मैंने उसमें select हो गया, and they basically were now going to cities and interviewing people. So Tanmay and Satyanshu sir. So they were basically doing that. So Bangalore में आए. I went for the interview, and Sati sir and Tanmay took my interview. Tanmay asked me about, तेरे को improv में इतना passion है, तू writing क्या करेगा? So मैंने उसको बोला कि that improv is actually made me a better writer because I am understanding how to write scenes. So and he liked that answer. He was like, ये बहुत सही बोला तूने and all that. Sati sir was being the bad cop. He was telling me, अरे तेरा story पूरा copied है, तारे ज़मीन पर लिख के लाया तू.
अच्छा. Nice.
So I was still trying to tell him कि नहीं ऐसा नहीं है. फिर मैंने उसको बताया मेरा perspective about the story, why I wrote the story and everything. So तो इंटरव्यू मेरा बहुत अच्छा हुआ. It was a very emotional experience for me. I think I for a bit I think I even cried at the interview because it was the deal for me. This was it. This was my plan A, and that was my only plan. कि बस ये
Plan B, go back to plan B. Plan A, yeah.
So this was my only plan, and अगर ये fail हुआ तो फिर अब मुझे पता नहीं क्या करना था. We would again improvise, but I wanted to go to Bombay and work on my writing career, and this was the only place I wanted to go because I didn't want to spend money. I knew I was good. I deserved a place there. Is what I always told myself. And उसके बाद after my interview, तन्मय बाहर आके बोलता है चल. He does this, and I knew then कि मेरा 10 में select हो जाएगा करके. Then finally तन्मय called me and he said क्या कर रहा है रोहित? मैं बोला कुछ नहीं, lunch कर रहा हूँ.
Okay, this was the similar call to my friend also. Yeah. Okay, this was the time. Cool.
This was the call. So I was having lunch, sitting alone. क्या कर रहा है? खाना खा रहा हूँ. क्या किसके साथ बैठा है? नहीं अकेला बैठा. अरे अकेला क्यों बैठा है? ऐसी क्या चल रहा है? तो कुछ नहीं. तो तू आएगा क्या बॉम्बे?
अच्छा, cool.
Like yeah man, of course. Then March में I moved back to Bombay. I took everything and I went back to Bombay. And that whole experience was such a game changer. What a game changer. AIB first draft. Like I really realized, what the power of cinema is. And I couldn't have asked for a better teacher than Sati sir. Really went through everything there. Everything we could learn, we could grasp. How we could make great stories and what beautiful stories exist out there, for us to feel motivated and do something out of it. So that changed it for me. They brought us up to pace with all the good writers in the industry. So kudos to First Draft. I really wish they come back with another version, another
third season. Yeah.
I think the world needs AIB First Draft.
At least Indians need it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Indians definitely need something like an AIB First Draft right now. And वहाँ से मेरा writing career शुरू हुआ. And while I was learning for AIB, while I was with AIB First Draft, my divorce also got materialized, and तो उसके बीच में I was writing another story very close to home. So that was another experience then. But yeah, and then shit went down with AIB. A lot of things happened after that. Yeah, and that's another act maybe.
We have already entered Act 3. So we'll talk about your screenwriting career now. So when you made a transition from improv to writing, so what happens is improv is about agreements. We have to agree, yes, and we have to agree to what the co-improviser has to offer us and then build upon it. But in writing, we do put conflicts. In improv, conflicts are not that a great thing. You shouldn't be disagreeing with your co-improviser's idea. So how did you adapt to this, putting conflicts?
So, when it comes to adding conflicts in a story, and when you're working with multiple writers, you're basically agreeing to how do I put this? You're basically there is agreement in that disagreement also. And for me it was not a big deal, because even in improv, when you add conflict, it is for humor. यहाँ पे maybe the function is different totally, but यहाँ पे at least the conflict aspect of it again needs a bit of yes anding. for us to think, okay, maybe this conflict will work. So now you start looking at things very objectively. Like a story is not, you're not creating it on the fly, but you sort of have time to look at it from a general perspective and then work towards the building blocks of it. So not a huge challenge, honestly speaking. It was very similar to my experience in improv, where in improv you're on stage and you create a conflict for comedic purposes. Yahan pe you're building a larger narrative. So yeah, more or less the same experience actually.
Okay. Can you tell us about the course? Like, how was it structured? If you're allowed to speak about it, like.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So so they had to first, because there were people from different walks of life, all right, and not everyone knew cinema the way maybe Satyanshu sir did, right? We definitely didn't, or even now we don't, but at least for us to understand what he's talking about, for us to come to that level, he started off by making us fall in love with stories, and he would instill in us the habit of reading screenplays, because until first draft I had no idea of how screenplays were written and what is the science behind it. So it's so important for a writer to understand the science behind a screenplay also. And because you're actually playing with you're working on the audience's collective emotional graph as well. When you're taking them through the journey of a protagonist, you're making them empathize with that person. So he basically initially, we would watch all kinds of stories. We would watch short films. We would watch a feature-length movie, series,
silent movies.
And we would also go and watch plays at Prithvi.
Nice.
Like every week, that was our routine. And every week we had 2 scripts, 2 screenplays that we would read and dissect. And while we would do that, he would also teach us the fundamentals of screenwriting, like what are the building blocks of screenwriting, the whole science behind it. So he would teach us, and as we went on, we realized that how our discussions had also changed. It became how objective and how technical it had become. Then we started, there was a lot of merit in now watching movies and understanding them, because tabhi to, when you're in it, when you the initial phases mein to are entertainment hai, wo hi zone mein rehte ho na, but because now you're in the business, so you have to see it very objectively, you have to see it very technically, and then you realize why great movies are differentiated from the mediocre ones, what works for them, what doesn't. So they had this ready, they had this prepared, and at the same time they had asked us to develop ideas for them, and work on stories, our own original stories. So we started working on our own stories as well. वो लिखते गए, and eventually at the end of the course, we had to finish the entire screenplay of our feature-length film or our series. So that was the end product, end goal of our first draft ka course. Like, you start off by trying to understand, comprehend the world of cinema, and then eventually, and you finish by writing a screenplay. So that journey was one where we grew as human beings. Lot of emotional understanding, lot of understanding of psychology of characters and people around us, how we take inspirations from people who we meet daily, day in and day out, and how they become these characters whose journey you are invested in following. So great learning. That whole process was again, for us to realize how big this world is.
Does it happen to you now that when you watch a film, since you said you started having technical discussions about the film and objectivity about everything, so can you watch a film like a fan anymore now, or have you become that technical dissector while watching content?
No. See, I would always. I mean, I will technically dissect a movie for sure, but then there are some stories that you can't sit and dissect. It's just more than
just
that.
Just take it in.
Yeah. And maybe contrary to popular belief, I absolutely loved watching Gully Boy. I loved.
People are going to disown you in the industry. Not me. Even I loved it. Okay, it's fine.
I loved Gully Boy. What an experience that was. And that point of time, you don't want to sit and dissect it. Like even now, if I watch Tare Zameen Par, I will not dissect it because the movie has such a brilliant story, such raw characters, such great performances. And पहले गो में तो मैं नहीं बैठ के dissect करूँगा, बाद में करूँगा, but first I want the experience. I won't rob myself from that. So Gully Boy was one such experience. And I remember there was this one beautiful movie I watched at Mami. अब नाम भी याद नहीं है. Oh my God, 12 Years a Slave.
अच्छा.
What a movie! You can't. Some movies you can't dissect. You can't. I mean, at least वहाँ तक craft पहुँचने दो, उसके बाद dissect करो. But these movies, they're just special stories, and you really have to. I mean, क्या कहते हैं? It only makes sense for you to take that experience in fully. Wait, I'll just tell you which movie was that.
Which Mami year was it?
Yeah, it was not 12 Years a Slave. Sorry, I was wrong about that. It was an Argentinian movie. Yeah? It was 2018 ka. About prisoners. A 12 Years Night. I think, 12 Years Night. That was the movie. Yeah.
I'll Google and find out. Argentina, 12 Years, Mami. Keywords.
Yeah, 12 Years Night. That was it.
12 Years Night. Okay.
A 12-year night. A 12-year night.
12-year night.
Sorry, it's from Uruguay. Sorry, not Argentina. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So 12 Years Night.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. So to answer your question, I still I love to get overwhelmed by movies. I'm a very emotional person. I love to cry. I've watched The Amazing Spider-Man and cried my ass off. So I watch it for the experience, and then probably later I will dissect it.
Very wonderful, very nice. Like you're trying to keep a balance between that. Otherwise, it's you forget the purpose for which the movies were made, and
you forget the reason why you're in this profession in the first place. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're in love with the movies.
It's very easy to be bewildered, like after getting in. So you said that your improv knowledge helped you in screenwriting, and after learning screenwriting, did it help you in improv, and how did it help you?
Oh yes, absolutely. So now you understand scenes, why they are played the way they are, why they are written the way they are. What is the function of a scene in a narrative? How it plays for comedy, why it plays for comedy, why is it there in the first place? In the whole, narrative structure, why is it there? So now when you go and do improv with all of this knowledge, and when you're doing a scene, because, at First Draft, we used to write a scene every day. Every day we are writing a scene. So now when you go and do improv, it can't just be all haphazard anymore.
Okay.
There is a clear purpose of a scene. There is a clear structure of a scene. there are clear dynamics between characters, and now I make sure whoever I want to improvise with in the long term also understands this, so that we give the audience a good experience, so that is the idea, and to not create any ambiguous stuff out there, for people, because improv is a concept, right? It's so free flowing, that people would do anything and everything. Sometimes they're so pressurized to create humor on the spot.
Yes.
Right. They do anything, absolutely anything. But now I realize that humor can delay itself, from appearing, and when that happens, that is also very effective. So we can keep people away from humor, and then boom, we give them that one surprise, and then people are loving it, they're laughing about it. So definitely has helped me so much in understanding improv better.
If it's not always funny, it can be engaging. That could be, I think, a way to approach improv. And
yes.
So like when we see that people in the West who started from improv, they went to sitcoms and like doing sketch comedies on camera, like camera-oriented content, or doing funny comedy films. What do you think? Do you think in the next decade, Indian improv would also produce such artists?
Yes.
And how do you see?
I absolutely believe. Yeah.
Would we have a lot of improv specials on OTT platforms? Because digital has come in now. How do you see? How can we take advantage of the digital platforms and get improv to people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's high time that OTT platforms start looking for people who do good improv. There is a whole goddamn community that is doing improv. If you just open your eyes and not count the number of Instagram followers they have, you will find great performers. There are some amazing improvisers out there. There is a great team. Just coach them right, and they will give you great content. And I vouch for it, absolutely vouch for it. Good improvisers make for good writers. And we've seen that happen so much in the past. We've seen that, in SNL, we have, most of the writer performers,
Yes.
They have either become great writers, or they've become great actors. Like somebody like a Jordan Peele.
Yes.
Jordan Peele, who I mean, look at their sketches, Key and Peele. Look at it is so simple, so functional. Look at their acting, look at their character work. It's amazing. And he goes on to write and direct something like Get Out and Us. It baffles me. It baffles me to think how simple that design, that idea of his story is. It almost seems like a sketch for me, and he's done such a fabulous job. That is the kind of understanding you get when you become good at this craft. And I am sure in the next 5 years, not even 10 years, I'm telling you, in the next 5 years, you'll see another improv specials by different actors, different performers. I'm sure about that. Just a matter of time.
But how do you look at this fact that how can we make it different from stand-up comedy in a way that we are assured, as audiences, we are assured that in stand-up comedy, we'll get a joke like every 10 seconds at least, or 30 seconds for sure. But how do we take improv to the audiences looking at this conditioning they already have, that they are supposed to expect jokes?
Yeah,
and,
correct.
And you need more camera setup for improv because you don't know where the action might be. And for stand-up, you need only 3 maybe. Stand-up you can cover with that. Audience ka 2, ek performer ka, you can cover it somehow.
Yeah.
So there is so much investment in improv, and you still don't know if the jokes are going to come because it's very unpredictable. How do you see this dynamics? How do you see this?
See, exactly. And this is a struggle we had as a group also to, like I mentioned earlier, visibility was always a problem for us, and making ourselves have a different identity from stand-up comedians was always a fight. So that's where we try to create as much as we could on the web. Like we started creating digital platform. We started creating sketches, started shooting them, putting it out there, wanting to make people go watch it. And once they do, then you tell them that once you get that amount of what do you say, that number of footprints, when you have people come and watch you, when you have so many impressions on the web, people are now looking at you as performers, then you tell them that we are improvisers and now you come and watch us. We do it live as well, so why don't you come and watch us? So for improvisers, I think it is essential that they create content. It is essential that they make comedic content on the web. It is essential for them to show what they're capable of as actors, as creators. Otherwise, if you just expect people to come and watch you on the stage without really knowing what you're capable of doing, that is going to be tough. And then you will see how the number of audience the amount dwindles, as it is sort of thins as you go on. Just keep performing without putting stuff out there for more and more people to consume. It is important for you to do that. One, definitely, create as many sketches as you can. Show what is your range of comedy, what is the kind of comedy you subscribe to. Then you will have your audience as well. Like every stand-up comedian, he puts his clip up there, and then it gets million views.
Yes, true.
And then you have then you have a show. Similarly, for us also, do a lot of sketches, do a lot of sketch work, let people come and watch, and then you finally do a show, record that show, invest at least once, because you're going to be a group of 5-6, you can easily afford, put 5,000 each, have a great editor on board, have great cameras, have professional people capture your reactions, capture your acting, see what you're capable of doing, how good you are as a performer. Let them record it, cut, edit, and now put it out there and let the world see how good you are. And I think that is absolutely essential for everyone to do that. I see somewhere, I feel bad that it's not happening quite as much. For example, look at how the Improv, the way they package their shows, their stuff, they're always creating something or the other. They always have like great production quality when it comes to their videos, and when it comes to their gigs that they perform for a live audience. They edit it nicely, they put their subtitles, they do the work. It is essential, for us to make ourselves seen and heard. It is essential. So I think once you start doing that, you start showing what you're capable of, how good you are in this craft, only then people come and watch it. Otherwise, then you just sit and complain and say that, improvisers don't make money. Yeah, exactly. And you can change all of that. So I think it's essential for groups to create stuff online. Absolutely essential.
Very well said, Rohit. And I know I've taken a lot of your time. You're a busy writer. So I have this last question. Could you please tell us what's happening on the writing front as well as improv front in this lockdown? What are some things you're doing?
Yeah. So I am currently writing a comedic series for Netflix, commissioned by Dharma. I am also working on a project with MA and Prime Video. I had last year, I had written a series for Alt Balaji. It'll start, I think it's going to get on the floors now. In September, it'll start shooting.
Okay.
I'm very excited about an idea that Khamba and I are working on together. That is something that I've been actively working on. And with improv, Nasir and I have together. We formed our own group called Nair and Nasir, where we basically are looking at primarily doing comedic improv, and it will be the long form only, and that is something that we have been working about. But we are not really keen on doing a lot of Zoom shows now, because it's a transient phase. Don't want to invest a lot. So Nasir and I are doing something called we're taking up workshops in comedy, and that is something we both of us have been passionate about. So we don't teach people how to be funny, but we show them the tropes. We talk about the psychology behind it. We talk about why we find certain things funny, and how can we use that to make our our writing or our sketches or our act on the stage funny as well. So what are the tropes that we can use, so stuff like that. So yeah, that's more or less what I've been doing for the past 4-5 months now.
On that note, thank you so much, Rohit. You joined me for this session, and that was such a lovely story from your childhood in Navi Mumbai to your dreams of becoming a storyteller, and then doing engineering, finding improv, discovering improv, doing improv along with engineering, quitting engineering, getting into AIB First Draft, today becoming a screenwriter and finding your niche as a performer, improv performer. So that was such an inspiring story. Thank you so much, Rohit. All the best. We are looking forward to watching all your shows and films that you are writing and have written already. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Shashi. Thanks for having me here. You're doing such a fab job. I'm falling in love with you every passing day.
Thank you, Rohit. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, man.